the cases, it was set out in the materials that we submitted in the letter. I mean, in summary, the notice that was issued purported to have a finding of violations that had predicate implications for future penalties and things of that nature. And we don't believe it was done in accordance with procedure under town's own law, under state law. And, you know, it's not something that, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. I don't want to sit here and kind of belabor the issue. And I think it's just something that came out that happened that the code enforcement officer issued, and we just think it was a mistake, maybe the way it was worded. And it shouldn't be held to be a violation because you have to have a court of appropriate jurisdiction find an actual conviction that would have an effect, such as de-escalated penalties. And so we just would like to have the zoning board, and we appeal any decision of the code enforcement officer gets appealed to you, and that's what we did.
Okay, thank you very much. Any members of the board have any questions at all?
Help me with my recollection, guys. The enforcement issue certainly came up when PS21 was before us. I don't recall how it was resolved. I thought that it was part of the development agreement with the town. Is that not what happened? What was supposed to happen here?
Well, keep in mind, right? So we issued the last set of approvals for the project.
Yeah.
You know, those don't really kick in
until
the main facility is constructed.
Gotcha.
So we're proceeding under the prior approval.
Gotcha.
Is that correct?
That's correct. And you know, there were issues. To me, it's really kind of legal issues of procedure and due process. If I file the appeal, I have to put the factual argument in as well, which we don't think factually that any exceedance of a decibel limit occurred. But
yeah, that's where my, I guess, biggest issue with this is that, you know, our prior approvals set decibel limits and hours of operation.
Right.
You know, and most of those violation claim that there was some violation of those.
Right.
Yet there's no substance or facts to basically back that up. There's no showing anywhere that there was a violation of any of the decibel limits set forth in the special permit.
Right.
And at least the evidence that's been presented in the affidavit show that the hours of operation were within the what was approved.
Right. Correct.
So you know, factually, I don't see where there was a violation. So no, I don't really see where we can kind of sustain the notice of violation and uphold that. And in my opinion, I think we actually have to reverse it.
Yeah. I am inclined to agree. I just was curious as to what should have transpired, because you know, obviously, if a call is made at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, nobody's going to get it until Monday morning.
Right. Right. I mean, these are the issues that we discussed, you know, at the last round of approvals.
Right.
You know, and there was some discussion about trying to establish an enforcement protocol that all parties could follow. Right. You know, to try to deal with this issue.
Right.
Because it's been an issue for a while.
Right. And is that still outstanding, or?
You know, I don't know, because the town attorney had that. It was with the town board.
Okay. My understanding that there is a development agreement in place that has a protocol for that for when the structure is completed.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Mary Beth has been working on that.
That was out of our hands, and
right.
We discussed doing that, and you know, then it went to the town board, and so you guys, sounds like you guys have worked.
Yes, they're working on that, and I think may have come to an agreement on that.
Okay. So I also want to point out that based on those discussions and the new protocol, one of the things that PS21 agreed to was that they would have someone with a phone number that should be called during the event.
Right.
That number has been distributed. I know I got it.
Okay.
And they did not, evidently, none of the documents state that he was called.
Okay.
And so you have what David and you have said, that they didn't follow the law. I think it's important that we agree that the protocol previously was not substantively adequate. We've made changes, but there seemed to have been no effort in this particular situation for them to even try to utilize that.
Just assuming that you're talking about the neighbors?
Yeah, the neighbors could have called Sam. I mean, you know, they had his number, and they didn't even call Sam. They kind of waited and then, you know, tried to alert Walt.
Right. So picking up on that point and your point about the protocol, I mean, I think now that the protocol has been established, we need to basically get it out there. So we need to let the neighbors know somehow that here's the protocol that's been agreed to, here are the phone numbers, here are the things that you got to do. You know, I don't know what I'm kind of, we're probably a little bit beyond what we're supposed to be addressing with
Right,
respect to this
absolutely.
issue, but, you know, somebody needs to deal with that, I think. No, you guys?
I thought that that was done. I thought that the phone number went out.
I'm not aware of that, but I don't know how I would be aware of that.
Permanent
So-
structure's not gonna be up for a while, so that we don't get hit with this summer. Steps are being taken to, so this won't happen again, I hope, right? It's not ours, but the town, I would think, would be,
Right.
taken.
Well, do you guys want to, you know, maybe we can send a note to the town board, to the town attorney, just, you know, requesting that now that the enforcement protocol has been finalized for PS 21, that actually get distributed to, you know, neighbors, maybe within 500 feet, or, you know, whatever the public hearing
I
notice
just
requirement
posted
is,
it, or even
well,
posted it.
post it here, put it on the website, I mean, whatever we got to do to kind of get it out there. It hasn't already been
The
done.
question now becomes, the protocol was established for the new building, when the building is built. What
Right.
happens in the meantime?
Well, that phone number could still go out,
Right.
and that
Okay.
person could still be called. You know, obviously, they're not gonna have the sound reduction mechanisms up, but they still have the proper decibel levels now and the hours of operation.
Besides, it was noisy. How noisy? You have any proof?
No, that's the problem with this notice of violation.
If you have a state trooper stop you, we can give you a ticket. We have to state what speed you were going.
Yeah.
Or whether we can just say you're going too fast.
Yeah.
No.
If we are going to send a note to the board, if we are going to recommend contacting neighbors directly, I would like it to be a larger number than 500 feet, because that's what we used for the notification of the meetings, and some significant numbers got left out of that, as it turned out, because what we thought was the edge of the property was, in fact, a different property. Do you remember the folks on the corner of Highbridge Road were not notified of any of the public hearings because they're within 500 feet of Mrs. Grunberg's property, but not 500 feet of West Terra property.
Well, let's address the notice of violation first.
Yeah.
Once we get that out of the way, then we can deal with, you know,
Okay.
whatever the other issues are with respect to this. Hey, Gary, go ahead.
Oh, yes.
So what does the board want to do with this? Is there agreement on it that the notice of violation should be rescinded?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Any final comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Murray.
Thanks very much. All right, so as far as the vote that we're going to send to the town board,
Are you drafting that or am I?
if you wouldn't mind doing it, that would be terrific.
In the next 3 days.
I love you.
And so I guess we just, instead of, I think, selecting sort of limits and distances and stuff like that, I mean, my preference would be just to say, we think that they should provide notification to the public and to the neighbors that this enforcement protocol has been established, however they feel is best for the public. I mean, because it's really not,
No, it's not our.
it's not our deal.
Right, absolutely.
All right, is everybody in agreement with that? All right, the next item on the agenda is Mr. Moab? My apologies on pronouncing your name. The record reflect that Mr. Kozlov has recused himself from this matter. All right, so this is a public hearing, so I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Public hearing is open. Do you want to come down and kind of give us a rundown of some of the things we've done since the last meeting?
Well, the first point I wanted to, I think, clarify, especially for board members, is I kept referring to the footprint of the home being small, 800 square feet, and I just wanted to make sure for the record that the plan that I have refers to the footprint of 800 square feet. The impact on the area lot, it talks about the 1.7% impact, so it's a relatively small impact on the overall lot. The living space on the first floor is 1256. The second floor is, it's a loft, so in my mind, it's still, in my thinking, it's a one-story, but for architect speak, it's the second floor, that's 566. So the, I just want to make sure you guys understand that it's a relatively small house.
What's the total square footage, living space?
1256 first floor, 566 second floor living space.
Like 1,800.
Right, there's storage of 156.
If the footprint is 800 square feet, how is there 1256 on the lower first floor?
Yeah, I asked for, the architect was very sustainably driven, and given the size of the lot and everything, I wanted to have as least little impact as possible, so we did a cantilever so we can make it so that there's not much disturbance there, so that's really, and plus it looked pretty cool what he did, so.
Which direction is that cantilever?
That's this way.
This way? This
Yeah.
way?
Yep.
Okay.
And I think that was my main point that I wanted to clarify. And the garage is 654 square feet.
And the garage is not on this drawing?
Chris, can you speak to the drawing around, well, it's on this site plan.
That is the footprint.
That's, right, that's the foundation that's there.
Yeah, where's the garage?
So where's the garage going?
This is my builder, EJ, and of course we met Chris the last time.
The garage is basically here, where the front, so it's on here, this drawing here, so this is the foundation, this is the garage.
Okay.
And, then there's just an overhang, they're not actually attached, so it'll have some cover coming from the garage into the house. So basically, it's in this same line as the house, just forward of the home.
All right, so it's still within the building envelope?
Still within the building, yeah.
So one of the questions that I had was, you sent us this plan, and the configuration of this house doesn't match that. And so there's some inconsistencies between the plans. So my question is, which one of these is correct?
That's actually pretty close.
That's pretty close.
Yeah, this is the cantilever part that he's talking about here. So this is the main structure, the 20 by 40, the 800 square feet. And then this is the additional couple hundred square feet that's cantilevered out. And then there's the garage. So, within, a foot or an inch or something. Basically, this is the foundation that's in place now. These are the piers. So these would represent these piers here for this part that cantilevers out.
Is the cantilever taken into account on the survey and on the septic site view that's here? Where it shows all the dimensions and everything?
Yep.
Because this just shows the box as opposed to this, which is really, a little bit different than a box.
Yeah.
Well, that plan, just for the record, that was just more addressing the aesthetic.
This one here.
Yeah,
Right.
that was painting and rendering of what the aesthetic would be.
But the survey, it looks like just has the foundation footprint, it does not have the cantilever.
Well, that might be, that's an engineer's survey. This is the actual surveyor survey.
Okay.
That certified the foundation. So this is by Van Alstyne.
Okay.
So this is the one that actually has it with the setbacks. And then the foundation is in, and he's actually done a survey, which I think you included in your packet, that shows the physical location, where it's actually like a little over 2 feet inside.
Do we have this on the record?
Yeah.
Yes.
You have it on the update.
You have it, yeah. That's what you all got mailed, so you all received that in the mail? That's what you,
Yes, we
yeah.
got it in the mail, yes. That's correct.
Yeah, my plans are actually based off of that Van Alstyne survey as well. It looks like it's only the foundation showing for the building here, which correlates with this this foundation here as well. So there's still room for the garage in this location. It just looks like the surveyor didn't have the garage on that file.
Does the overhang considered to be part of the footprint or just the foundation?
It appears that there's enough room if the overhang's heading east, so I don't think it should be a concern based upon those 50-foot setbacks.
Still be within the.
It'll still be within the.
Still in the envelope.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that we asked to be shown on on the plan, so we can, you know, verify that in fact all these setbacks have been met.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that certainly the cantilevered space would be subject to the setback laws, regardless of whether it's part of the footprint.
And this concrete here, for this part of the cantilever has not been poured yet because of the septic. We need, you know, in order to not disturb any more of the site than we need to, we want to wait to pour these until these are in. So that's why that's not in that latest updated survey that you have showing that. Okay, here's where the foundation is.
I would like to have that in the survey as part of the record.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to have the garage on there as well.
Yeah, but that doesn't have the cantilever.
And that also doesn't have the distances from the edge of the foundation to the setback line, which you put on yours.
Right.
So I guess what you're saying, JP, and I think I agree with you, is that I'd like to see on your plan a garage, you can put it as proposed garage, and then the cantilever, put it as proposed, whatever you want to say.
Absolutely.
And then show what the dimensions are to the setback, so we can verify that the building falls within the setback, so the only thing that's outside of the setback is going to be the septic.
Absolutely. We can definitely do that.
Okay?
Where's this rail bed that keeps coming up? Where is that located on here?
It's on this pointing line right here, this is it, right here.
That's it right there?
Yep.
That's on your property, or room. Who owns that?
I think it's a right of way, I'm pretty sure.
Right away?
Mr. Garone has admitted in his letters that he owns it.
Oh, he owns it. So you got nothing to do with that.
That's a railroad right away?
Yeah, for
The old
utilities,
railroad.
National Grid, yeah.
It's the old Rutland Railroad. Yeah.
And, I mean, further on, in addition to the updated survey and Chris's updated site plan, there was the Chris information for the, you know, making sure that the site is clear of any archaeological record. And we also, what else did we do? Put a rendering of the impact visually from the customer, the person next door, showed the screening involved with, and maybe a narrative, we put a narrative in about how the house lives from the east to sort of minimize the viewpoint of the person next door. And it's pretty obvious that the screening is already good, but in the landscape plan I have basically you're not going to be able to see the house at all, is the bottom line.
So can we talk about the landscape plan just real quick?
Yeah.
This was the landscape plan that you guys had sent to us.
Yeah.
It shows kind of a row here of arborvitaes that you're proposing.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks like it stops here about halfway, like right in the middle of the house. Is there any plan to continue them on here, or?
If you look at the pictures, which is more of a, this is a conceptual drawing early on, dealing with an artist guy who happens to be also an architect. And the way that the rendering as it's drawn shows the arborvitaes and the viewpoint from the neighbor's perspective next door.
This is the driveway.
Right, our neighbor. And then,
So this is looking this way?
yeah, this is looking, say, from
here.
right. So the idea is to not have it be visible at all. So the rendering here is probably the most important thing because that's what I want to achieve. I think the drawing, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in the drawing only because it was a early on conceptual rendering when the guy was at my house. And then this shows the arborvitaes and it clearly is in front of the entire structure.
That's the east side now,
Yeah.
right?
That's his side, right, Mr.
No, I thought this side didn't have the windows there and all that.
Those aren't windows. That's
Oh, they're not?
we went for like a camouflage batting kind of scenario. Colors that are earth tones to sort of make it blend into the environment. So we're trying to minimize the visual impact.
So I'm just trying to understand, on the plan, so you're saying this is conceptual only
Yeah,
at this point?
that was.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to see, and I think the renderings are helpful, but I would like to see on a plan where the arborvitaes are going to go. So if the board ultimately decides that they want to approve it, if that's what they want to do, they may not. But then we will know where they will go, and that can be incorporated as part of a condition of the approval. And so that's why I was asking
this stops right here halfway in the middle of the house, are they gonna continue on, or do they need to continue on to provide additional screening?
Right. Because there's quite a bit of natural vegetation there already that's pretty well grown up, even with the leaves being off the trees.
Is that why they were stopped here, you think, because of the natural vegetation?
Most
or
likely,
just
because we, for the footprint of the house, we actually probably took down maybe 6 or 8 trees total in this wooded lot, so pretty much everything else, I mean, he's gonna have natural trees, natural vegetation very close to that, something we normally wouldn't like, but it'll just help keep the house secluded.
Right.
So they have to live 12 months a year, or they don't lose their leaf and be planting trees out?
Well, there is some pines in there, so.
Pines will be all right.
There's some pines in there, which will be good.
But that's why the arborvitaes are good, because they're obviously evergreen and they're gonna provide that screening.
So give you a balance.
I drove out there today, and there's still a lot of trees in this area here where the septic is, which is frankly what we're all concerned about. What is coming down here? What trees are being kept, what trees are going away, and do you have any plans to mitigate the view of the septic
There
area?
really are a lot of trees in that location, I mean, a few small saplings and things like that.
Okay.
But anything that's outside that footprint that can remain will remain.
Mhm.
So anything obviously in the footprint of that mound system would have to be removed.
Right.
Or cut down. But outside of that, there's no need to remove any additional trees.
And this is the mound,
That's correct.
which is here.
Exactly.
What's the height here from here to here?
It should be in the plans, I mean, max height's going to be approximately 3 feet, I believe.
Okay, so this is,
Yeah,
so
12
this
inches.
is about 3
Oh,
feet.
approximately 3 feet.
Okay.
So it's gonna vary a little bit, because it's gonna be based on the grade and sloping it in with the grade.
Okay. And it's covered in topsoil, correct?
That's correct.
And will there be plantings on that topsoil, or does that have to stay?
You're not gonna put any shrubs or trees or anything like that.
Right.
But you can, obviously cover the grass.
Well, I mean, it's pretty well shaded. I don't know
Yeah.
that any sort of grass is going to grow.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess what I'm asking is what can be placed there so that it doesn't just look like a mound of dirt?
It's actually gonna, when you look at it in the overall diameters of the lot within the scope, this contour line here is about 480. This will still actually be a little less than that. So if you're standing on the neighbor's property, even though it's 3 feet up from the current height, it's still gonna be less than what that property is. It's still not gonna come to that same height because of the elevation that goes up. Because this property, as you can see with the contour line, slopes up this way. So even by bringing it up 3 feet, it's still gonna be less than what the neighbor's property is. So if you're sitting at a sight line from the neighbor's property looking out, you're never gonna see it.
Yeah, there was a grading plan that was provided previously,
Okay.
and shows basically that. Obviously, it's a downward, eastward sloping graded site.
So this section is like that, correct? I'm looking at a section that crosses this way.
That's correct. It would actually be the other, the reverse of that elevation.
Right.
From the other direction.
So it would be
From
this.
this side.
So it would be this. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and so what you're saying then is that the height of the adjacent property is up here, and this is below that.
Yes. Yeah, it would actually be in this location, so this would be the neighbor's property. And this would actually be tilted on slope.
Gotcha.
Right, so the neighbor's property might be here.
Right.
Then you're gonna basically grade into that mound and then grade the mound down.
So it will do something like this. It's not gonna go like that.
Correct.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And it'll be lawn.
It'll be long.
It's gonna be like grass.
Right.
It's gonna be natural
It
vegetation.
should be lawn.
Lawn.
No, but this is on the neighbor's side? This is observation tube here?
Oh, none of the system will be on the neighbor's side.
Okay.
This will all be, so that this footprint here
Mhm.
is the outside of the slope of the mound.
Okay.
Right, so the
Okay.
toe of the slope is this mound, so it's, has a little bit more of a slope on all sides.
Right.
As opposed to a raised.
So I'm just curious where the grading plan, where this observation tube comes into play then? Is that over here? Is that over here? It would be over here. Okay.
Because this is where the system is being pumped from.
Okay. And what is an observation tube?
It's just part of the raised bed system, so you can tell, you can more or less get an idea of what's going on there. It's along with like the alarm system as well. You know, in case there are ever any issues with these systems, you want to have as much feedback as possible.
So it's a pipe
Yeah.
parallel to the ground. How big is that pipe? Looks like it might, I see a 4 and a 1 there, I don't know what.
Yeah, maybe 1 inch.
So it's a 1-inch pipe,
Yeah, I believe so.
and is it PVC or metal or what?
All this is would be PVC.
Okay. Is there any possibility to color that? Okay. And then is
What color?
Well, I mean,
If you're asking for the color, you need to tell them what color.
I would say like a dark brown
Sure, okay.
to get it to blend with the ground.
Alright.
And is this a mound as well, or that's?
That'll be left as is. That's just a 50% expansionary in case you ever need to expand the system at a later date.
Right, so that's not,
That would be
there's,
used as current existing grade.
okay, but if we needed to, if you needed to expand 10 years down the road, that's where it would be.
Exactly.
So we'd be granting a variance for that possibility down the road, is
Well,
that?
we need to talk about that, because I guess, that's a kind of speculative what if,
Yeah.
and the health
We don't
department
like
has to
this.
approve that, right? So, my view would be, if they need that, the health department says they need that, that maybe they come back for the variance at that point,
Right,
as opposed to granting a variance on something that's just kind of
Speculative.
speculative in the future, right?
yeah, okay.
Right, and you're never gonna add bedrooms, so the only time you would need a variance would be added bedrooms, and that's probably not ever gonna happen, so.
Right,
So, but if the board decides they want to approve it, I think that we need to make that clear that, the variance is not being granted for the expansion area.
right, okay.
Just back on the arborvitae's, I'd like to try to draw that to a conclusion. So, my preference would, I'd like to see a landscaping plan kind of showing where they're gonna be. So we've got that in the file, is that something that you guys could come up with, so we can, assure ourselves that, there is gonna be that kind of a arborvitae row across that side of the property line? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you can send that to us, and then we'll take a look at that at the next meeting. And I'm gonna tell you why we have to we're gonna have to have another meeting on this in just a little bit, but,
And could we make sure that planting plan includes the area where the septic is, because it looks like on that would be off the page.
so you want the arborvitae's to continue across past the septic field?
I don't have a preference, I just would like to see what the plan is. It sounds to me like this is not going to be terribly visible, but I just would like to see what it is that they're proposing.
As far as what? As far as like you want the plan just to show like a lawn, like the marked
Yeah.
lawn there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just would like it clear what we're expecting to happen. Again, the septic area is the area of concern for me. And I just would like to know what's happening over there.
Grass would grow there, even the shade, I could always put turf there, but I certainly wouldn't want dirt there,
Right.
But that's, regarding the cantilever, Pete Van also, the guy I've been working with, he would be able to provide that in a similar fashion. Just so I understand it, you want that, would you want the garage also on the same plan?
Yeah, and I think it would be preferable to have it on the seed engineering drawing, just because he's already provided all of the setbacks and the distances between all the different features on the site. So I think it would just be better just to kind of add it to that, so we've got it all on one plan.
Sure.
Instead of having two separate, because Chris, I think that was I ended up printing a full-scale drawing. How many sets of do you have? You have two different sets of blueprints there?
We do.
Site plans?
We've got one kind of full one of the whole
Right,
site, the
right.
whole lot,
Yep.
and then we've got another one which is a blow-up just of the septic area, which is what we had asked for at the last meeting.
Your preference would be to have the Pete's work on this print that you're looking at now, the.
No, the seed one, yeah, that,
Yep,
yeah.
and we'll do it on the expanded, the detailed.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You got this, Chris? Because I'm.
Right.
Now, on your plan, I had a couple of questions regarding some of these distances, and my questions relate to whether or not we need to have some other variances.
Okay.
Okay? So we've been focused on the variance, the setback variance from this property line here. But you're gonna have this, which is the proposed filter mound septic absorption system. You know, do we need to basically have a variance from the corner of the end of this infrastructure to this property line?
We will.
Okay, so we need to know what that is. We need to know what that variance is gonna be, like what the setback is.
Sure. I think it's on the, is it on one? Oh, it's, that one's not, this one is 10 feet. Okay, I can have that one.
But this is the expansion area, so we're not worried about that for this application,
Okay.
right? So, so that's one there. Then, when you get down here to, this is what, the buried sand filter.
That's correct.
This is also from this corner to this property line here. I think we need to know, that looks like it's less than 50 feet.
Okay.
So we need to know what that is too, because that's a third variance, right? And then you get down here to this, which is the septic tank. And I believe this has got to be, I mean, you have here 10 feet away from the home, which I believe is what the code requires.
Correct.
But the distance here is only 4 feet, right? Am I reading that correctly?
No, 4 feet is dimensioning the width of the tank.
The width of the tank.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the setback from the house?
10 feet.
It is 10 feet. And where is that on here?
I don't believe that is labeled on there.
Okay. So I would take off the width of the tank, because I don't think we really need that.
Okay.
Do you think we need that?
I don't think so.
I think we need setback, so we can show that it complies with the law.
Sure.
Okay. Then the other thing was the well. So you marked the well here. Is this the well you're going to use? Or is this just an existing well on the property and it is what it is? And
That looks like it's from an outside survey. That might be a previous well. That's not where we would place the well.
So you're gonna-
Yeah, the well's actually gonna get placed
Would be put.
down, here.
okay, so
Gonna dig a new well?
Digging the well.
all right, so that's we had asked that at the last meeting. So again, to confirm that the well meets the setback requirements in our code from the septic, you need to show that on this plan and just mark it as proposed well location. Sure. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on here. Okay, so those are 3 variances then we need to make sure that we have. All right. The other thing that I had was, last time we had a conversation about where the old foundations were, to try to figure out whether or not there was an archaeological issue. And so you marked one of the foundations right here, which is basically kind of right in the middle of where all the septic work is going to be done. So
Wait a second.
this foundation right here, I assume that's an old stone foundation?
You put it as a feature. You didn't really specify if it was a foundation on that, did he? On the bigger, well, yeah, on the bigger one, he did put notes on it. I want to make sure we're going over this with him. Probably put something down. Nothing. Wait. No, I can't.
Yeah, because I thought he had mentioned these were actually, these were the one locations of those, I believe.
Well,
But I don't recall seeing anything in that case.
There's a rock wall right
I
there.
think that might be the rock walls.
well, can you clarify what this is? Because this is square, or so that's a rectangle, and it looks like it's a foundation for a building.
Right.
And so, you know, that was one of the issues that we discussed at the last meeting, was whether or not there's any potential archaeological impacts because of some of these old foundations that may have related to the railroad operations.
Sure.
And whether or
This
not,
particular spot right here, I mean, you've got a line drawn here that is indicating a measurement, but I don't see where we're doing any, disturbing any of the soil in that area.
Do you have the letter that I submitted with the photo logs?
yes, we do.
I believe I did, when we went out there and dug a couple test pits just to see if there was any existing archaeological location. Didn't come across anything. I don't remember if I submitted a photo in that location or not.
Well, what I'm saying is that there's no excavation that is being done in this location.
Here's the existing foundation. Here's a photo from this direction facing the foundation. I don't know where he's seen any remnants of foundation location.
Okay, but it says buried sand filter, which is right next to this.
Correct.
Okay, so
I can understand.
you can't bury a sand filter here without disturbing whatever that is, right?
Sure.
So you just need to clarify for us what that is. If that's a foundation, then we may have some archaeological issues we're going to have to address.
Sure.
As part of the balancing, because that's a potential environmental condition. If it's not a foundation, then let's know that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great. I'll touch base with the surveyor and get clarification on that.
Yeah, he said it was a rock wall. He called it a natural feature. He didn't refer to it as a foundation.
Okay.
And that may be, but we don't know that, looking at it, and the fact that I look at this as something that's a rectangle, that's very rarely a natural feature.
We don't exist in nature.
It exists, it's just statistically unlikely.
All right.
So I'm just going to tell you that my view is that if that's an old foundation, then you're going to need to have somebody, like an archaeologist or somebody, go out there and evaluate it, because you're building right next to it. My assumption is that you're probably going to obliterate part of it. We need to have some evaluation that it's not of any significance.
Chris, well, I've had this discussion with, the whole point of that rock wall, that particular feature, was to leave it. That was the point, because it would become a natural part of the landscape. And correct me if I'm wrong here, EJ, but there's no plans on disturbing that in any way.
Well,
Chris,
you can confirm what's there.
We'll verify what's there, I don't recall.
Because I saw the test holes that you guys did prior to coming in, and I didn't see anything that looked like a foundation on walking that property.
Okay.
So, because that's something I would have brought to him, hey, what are we going to do with that? Because if nothing else, you'd have potential for sinkholes and all that, but there's nothing like that other than, because that has an increased elevation, so that whole area from that back area really down to the road is kind of all rocky and stone, and probably when the farmers back in the day when they separated that property, or maybe even the railroad right when they tossed it over. So
Right.
that's what it looks like more.
Okay. Well, just take a look at it, clarify that for us. At the last meeting we did have discussions about the foundations and their use for railroad operations in the 1800s for the Riders Mill Hamlet. There is some potential historic value there that we need to make sure that we're not going to be creating a problem for if it does exist. So, okay?
Are you advising me to get somebody to evaluate it besides Pete, or not?
If this doesn't exist out there and it was just drawn erroneously,
Right.
then you don't need anybody.
Right.
The photographs you showed me, I can't see any stone foundations there.
It should be at least partially visible in that photograph based on that view, I would think, but.
But if it is a full foundation,
Right.
then yeah, I think you're gonna need to get somebody from Arkin or whoever other archaeology, company that, have them come out there, take a look at it, make sure that. it's not
But I
gonna be
think
an
in the
issue.
short term, all we need to do is get with Pete, go out, find out what his intentions were with that, and, dig another test hole or two in that area and say, here's what we found. The foundation, we'll find it relatively, very easily.
Wouldn't it also be germane to the point that if we're not disturbing it in the process of putting in the septic, isn't that partly the point of it all?
Yes,
Possibly, but it's extremely unlikely that, I mean, this, again, as this is drawn here, the sand pit,
Adjacent.
the sand filter butts up against it. And I mean, on your section here, we've got some compacted soil there. You know,
Yeah, well.
I don't know who's doing your backhoe work, but, you know, I would imagine there's gonna be a little bit of.
Yeah, we'll identify it initially, see what we're looking at, and then move forward with the path as you express.
I mean, even on the assumption that you're not disturbing it and you're building.
Right, you still need to.
Still doesn't mean that you don't have archaeological concerns, because people don't live just in their house, and they don't, you know,
Right.
people tend to live outside of their house too.
Right.
So, you know, you need to evaluate that, that's all.
Well, as part of that, I'd be interested to know what the criteria are for archaeologically significant.
I am curious about that as well.
I mean, there's a big difference between old and historic,
Right.
old and archaeologically significant.
Is that something the state defines anywhere? or-
Yeah, that's why again, hiring an expert,
Yeah.
you know, an archaeologist,
Yeah.
they'll be able to go out there and evaluate in accordance with the state standards, as well as the eligibility criteria for listing on the National or State Register of Historic
Right.
Places.
So is that something SHPO would probably not?
Yeah, they would probably, the archaeologists would coordinate with SHPO, and they would look at maps, and, you know, they would go through their analysis. So, I mean, even though this is really a type 2 action under SECRA, because, you know, we're talking about a single-family house, and
Right.
variance related to that,
Right.
the variance standards require us to evaluate whether or not there's going to be an impact on the environment
Right.
outside of SECRA.
Right.
So that's why we really need to take a look at that.
Okay.
I mean, would it be helpful to just preemptively get somebody from Oregon to look at it? I mean,
It's your decision.
spend the $2,500, I mean, what would they say, what would they, you know what I mean? I don't really understand.
Well, I think let's first go to Pete and find out. It could be a random box that's on there by mistake. It could be as simple as that. And it could be a foundation, you know, it could be one or the other.
Yeah, it could have been a layering thing on their plan, you know, they just had a layer on.
Because that's
inadvertently
actually
put on
coming
the plan.
from Chris's set of drawings over. I mean, a lot of times that stuff gets lost in translation from one CAD system to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So, because Pete doesn't have it on his drawings from the survey, so, you know, I would say, you know, let's
Yeah, we have a few steps
put
before.
a shovel in the ground and confirm what's there and what's not there, and if we find something, then we hire somebody and kick it back to them. But, I mean, after walking it, my gut tells me that it's probably a random box more so than it is a foundation.
Anybody have any questions at all, anything else at this point? One of the things I had question on was the county health department letter, the approval letter back in August.
Okay.
And it says, in conclusion, the area tested is buildable and can accommodate a 3-bedroom home with a fill bed. And is this the area that we're talking about where you want to build a septic?
That's correct.
But then it says, this has got to be a typo, but it says a 20-foot berm on the sides and a 30-foot berm on the downslope of the system. Should that be 20 inches and 30 inches?
I think he was referring to a non-sand filter at the time. He thought he could do with gravity.
It's the last paragraph. I'm just trying to understand what berms the DOH is requesting in connection with the system. Because that goes to JP's point
Or
about.
talking the length, potentially.
Yeah, could be that, could be a length
That
issue.
is what I think is what you're talking about. Because usually that's the footprint of that filter system. You know, so a bigger one would be 75 by 100. You know, this one is relatively small for all those purposes.
Okay, so that's what he's talking about?
Yeah, I believe that predates the sand filter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I guess as the only other thing I was wondering, like when they classify something as a building lot, I guess there's a presumption we'll build on it, but I guess I'm learning through this process. I guess Karen's the only question.
How come none of this was looked at before determining it as a building lot? And now that something is to be built on it, all of a sudden all this archaeological stuff comes up. I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, typically the way that it works is that, if you've got a vacant lot and it's potentially buildable, and you don't need any permits or approvals, you can typically go ahead and build your house as long as you get a building permit. But in this particular situation, he needs to get a variance from the law because his building project doesn't comply with our law. And the New York State law requires us to look at all of these issues when he comes in for a variance. That's the only reason that it's being looked at.
The only reason I'm thinking of making sure we have more than we need is because I'm running out of time, obviously. I think I'll be out of, I just don't think my mortgage is going to hold up for another month or two. Like in terms of being able just to build it within the time frame they give you, right? That's why I want to make sure I do everything possible to get all the answers out there. So I'll take it under advisement with Chris and EJ, but I may end up, I just want to make sure you have everything. I'm going to be thorough the next time we meet, so you have enough to make a ruling,
Okay, it's up to you. The other thing was, we received a 20-plus page letter from your neighbor, Mr. Bruin.
Yeah.
Did you have a chance to take a look at that?
This causes me a lot of stress. I'm running a small business, so I already have a lot of stress, so I tend to look at them and review it, and then most of the stuff, I guess I responded a very short letter that I thought most of what was brought up was part of the building permit process itself. And I guess if there's anything specific, not being a builder, not being an engineer, basically being a plumbing and heating guy, there's not a lot I can really add to the lawyer side of it. But, I'm not a lawyer either, so I'm just a guy trying to build a house. So I guess the only way to answer it is I tried to dissect what I could out of it and learn from it, and I didn't really, I don't know if I'm really qualified to say much about it.
All right, well, I guess the question to the board is, is what do you want to do with the letter? I mean, there was a lot of information in here about setbacks and calculations of distances and all these kinds of things. Is this something that you want to have evaluated by the town engineer, or is it something that you want to just, think about for the next meeting, or, what do you guys think?
Well, as I was reading it, I saw a lot of points that were being raised that had already been addressed by this board. Mr. Is it Bruin is not here tonight. I would kind of like to ask him what his outstanding issues are, based on where we are right now. But like I said, just reading through it, there were a lot of things that have already been addressed. I don't know that having an engineer go over it seems redundant to me, but.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we do that. I'm just, throwing out ideas here, because I just,
We just got this today, too.
Yes, which is, unfortunate because, he knew about when the meeting was, so, we kind of let it until the last minute. But,
And there seems to be
21 pages.
a fair bit of misstatement in there and assumptions.
Well, again, these are clarifications that we've already made in the course of the public hearing.
Right, exactly.
There's a number of assertions in here to a lot of these items, and you're right, JP, we've already discussed and addressed them.
The only thing I saw that raised any concerns for me in his letter were addressed by my earlier questions, which was what are they going to see as far as this, the visual of this mound system. He mentions the observation tube in his letter, and you've answered that question. He said this is he mentions a bare mound, and you've answered that question. Those were the only things that struck me in the letter that were of any concern to me, but I am also not an attorney, so.
I'm wondering if it will help, if it will help us move through the process smoothly, if we have the town engineer review this. And render an opinion.
Yeah, and and certainly in the interest of expedience,
That's
I
exactly right.
don't want to have another outstanding issue next month.
Let's get the town engineer, review this.
Some of the.
I guess, I mean,
Dave, are there any legal, like, files you look at, or,
A lot of the information in there is just personal, like why I chose to build a house now versus later, and
right,
I
which is
answered
not,
some of that
It's a lot of
stuff.
very subjective.
And just,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess my view on it is the applicant has an engineer who's provided all this information, there's a lot of plans, there's a lot of maps, there's a bunch of reports. I'd feel better if we had an engineer take a look at it, at least we can say to Mr. Bruin that we're having, an expert take a look at these particular issues.
That's fine. I don't want to spend somebody else's money, but
I hate to do that to you, but, in all honesty, I think it would be, better for the record to have that done. I'd feel more comfortable.
believe that part of the variance process, though, is there to solve the problems, and that's kind of what I'm in front of you guys, mainly to get to solving the problem. An engineer review of something, because we're in the variance process, that actually is the reason we're having a variance. I just don't think there's anything we couldn't address in any kind of review or report. I feel like,
Right.
the facts are the facts, and that's it.
Well, that's obviously the hope, is that that's the way it'll turn out, but I don't think it'll take somebody very long to kind of look at all these plans. There's a lot of detailed septic information on here, the kind of septic system, and I'm not an expert in septic systems.
Right.
So it would be good to have, the engineer take a look at it. And
Yeah, absolutely. As far as, yes. The
Is it
other question
reasonable-
I have is, do we have a town engineer right now who could look at this before the next meeting?
The hope is that we will.
Well, I mean, again, I don't want to drag this out.
It's going to be, I'm going to email probably Maria and tell her that, we're going to be in need, in the next couple of weeks here, of an attorney and of an engineer.
Right.
So they need to basically let us know who that's going to be, because whatever decision we make here is going to have to be written up by the attorney. The attorney's going to have to understand all this. Because the attorney's ultimately be the one that's going to have to defend the decision that's written.
Right.
And then the engineer's obviously going to have to provide the technical, expertise and input to us. So that was my plan to do that, if that's what the board wanted to do, if you felt that was going to be necessary.
I think it's absolutely a valid point that we need to have an engineer look at the septic system, just because, as you said, I'm not an expert in this. And I guess,
Is he looking at the septic or more of the broader points?
He's going to look at everything, basically.
Yeah.
That's it. It's going to be the broader points, but it's also going to be, the septic and, the system that's being proposed and, all that sort of stuff.
Well, I just want to give deference to Chris's work in the health department too.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Hey, if he has any questions on anything, I can
Hey,
take
Dave.
first.
I did read it fast, but there's a little hope here on the last page where he's got conditions.
Yeah.
I read that.
Yeah, I did.
And he did say, well, the statutory factors militate against granting it variance, blah, blah, blah. The board has in recent past required the applicant to obscure the offending construction with appropriate vegetation, which we just did.
We've discussed. Yeah.
Appropriate, which we discussed. And I'm wondering whether that would be sufficient for the neighbor.
It might be. I don't know.
He did put it as one of the last conclusions.
Yeah, we're just two people. I agree with you 100% that I feel like in the end, I understand it, but we're here. Karen's been donating thousands of hours of time to the schools. We're in the community. We're here. We work. We're not out-of-towners. And we're just trying to build a house. But the point is, maybe that would be great if that was all that was required. But we certainly have a lot of work to do between now and the next meeting. And I feel like if there's any I just want to make sure that we give you everything possible for you to get to a decision-making point, since, you know, I feel like we're running out of time, as I said, and it's expensive. This process is expensive too, so.
Well, in the interest of expedience, then I think we ought to ask our engineer to look at it before the next meeting.
It's in everybody's best
And advise us, because, yeah, I'd like to put this to bed.
One of the questions that Mr. Roy raised was about noise. Is there going to be any noise related to this at all? I mean, about alarm systems and things like that.
The alarm system really shouldn't go off. It's, you know, it's a fail-safe type system. Yeah. So you're not really going to hear that.
Does the pump generate any noise?
It's a pump, but it's going to be a pump in a tank that's submerged, that's underground.
Right.
You know, it needs buried, so you won't get any noise.
So where does the alarm go off? Does it go off on the septic system that's out in the field, or does it go off in the house?
You can mount it on the house. You can mount it on a pedestal. Yeah, it's just a little red light
It
strobe.
sticks out about this far, it's got a red light on it, you can see it from under the barn, and if you get within 100 feet, you might be able to hear it.
Is that part of this
It's not.
section
And it happened
page?
once,
The
when we had a
pump station
real big
schematic?
rain.
I see we've got some electrical boxes above the ground there.
Okay.
That's what these are, right? Electrical boxes.
Yeah, electrical box running to power. This is the septic tank.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's just basically electrical system.
Okay. Will there be any odors to be expected?
No, a
associated
properly
with this?
functioning septic does not have odor.
I assumed as much, but they brought it up, so.
So on the noise then, is there a way that we can have the alarm be inside the house, be inside the structure? Is that possible?
I can check with the county and see if that would be acceptable.
If you could just let us know about that?
Sure.
Because if that's the case, then this issue would be addressed.
Okay.
Well,
So I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to get some of this additional information in. And then our law requires us to refer to the planning board for their advisory opinion. And we'll do that. We'll continue the public hearing until next month. So we can get all this information in, and then the members of the public can take a look at the new information and provide additional input. Then we'll wait for that advisory opinion from the planning board. Anything else? I'm just going through Mr. Bloom's letter here to see if there's anything else we want to discuss. I know one of the things was alternatives. And one of the issues that he brought up was that you could just build a smaller house and make the septic system smaller. Is that even possible? I mean, it's what, is it a two-bedroom house? Two-bedroom house?
And the septic is designed on the bedrooms of the house, so it's a relatively small footprint.
It's a small system.
And it's actually, by the New York State standards, it's a better standard than a gravity fed, which he has. So it's a better system than what he has, because it has a dosing tank, it's more environmentally friendly. It's a higher standard, it's a gold standard compared to what he has, just leaching directly into the ground, you know.
the state requires you build to a minimum size, right?
Right.
Chris?
Yeah, and this basically addresses that minimum size. The sand filter allows us to reduce the footprint of the mound as well. Because if you were going straight into a mound system without that sand filter, it would be even larger. So you get some reduction by doing that.
And I think last time we talked about, alternate locations on the property, and there really aren't any because of the 100-foot stream setback.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
Mention the pond.
He discussed the pond. I mean, my view is the pond is irrelevant to this because, that whatever it is. I mean, if it's a pond or not a pond,
I need
but
to speak up.
speak up if you want, sure.
It's just patently false. There is no pond. There's a tiny stream that runs through there. It gets wet in the spring. I don't want to go through that again, but I've emphasized that there's never been a pond. It gets wet in the spring and overflows sometimes. There was some stuff in the stream due to a tree being down the year I bought it, which was 2 years ago, and there was quite a lot of water in there, but as things go and as vegetation dies off, it's a little drier now, but it always still gets wet in the spring. I did nothing. I hired a guy to put in a driveway. That's all I did, and I told that to Mr. Gruen. It's just simply not true. And I don't, being a solar energy provider and a guy dedicating his life to sustainability, I kind of take offense to it. I normally don't really speak up too much, but I have an issue with that. I would never do that. I was a licensed fly fishing guy for 12 years. I'm very sensitive to any kind of ecosystem. It's just not true. That's all I would say about it.
So it's at best a normal pool?
What was that?
It's at best, this quote-unquote pond is a vernal pool. We're just in the spring.
In the spring, yeah, it's real wet.
The water collects because it doesn't drain.
In fact, that's one of the first things Karen brought up when I took her to see it. She's like, wow, it's pretty crappy down here, because it is pretty wet and swampy, but then it dries up, you know, it's just wet in the spring, that's it.
Well, like I said before, my view on that is, that's kind of water under the bridge, unintended, it's already happened or not happened.
Yes.
It's really an issue between you and him, it's not a zoning issue,
Right.
you know, it doesn't deal with this particular septic system, he didn't, you know, allegedly fill, you know, a pond or some other water source related to the septic system, so I just don't think that it's relevant. I mean, if he has an issue with it, then that's really between you and him, I mean, that's
Right.
kind of my view on it.
Mr. Chair, not
Yes.
relevant to this matter, but in general, when we do the public hearing, we tell the applicant a specific deadline that they're supposed to give requested documents in order for the public to have sufficient time to review so we don't get complaints.
Yeah.
They want to.
Yeah, we will do that. We're not there yet, but we're going to do that. Any other comments before you open up to the public?
No problem, Dave. You're in 5 acre zone, right?
This is non-conforming lot,
You're
right?
5, yeah, but I know in Bloomington's not at 10 acres, that's what
It's
Or RL2.
It's RL1, isn't it?
No, I'm according to the map,
Okay,
it's 5 acres.
and then it's 5 acres.
I mean, he was saying 10, that's why I was.
Yeah, it's a non-conforming lot.
Right, but you, in his letter, he said this is RL1,
Yeah.
and you're saying it's RL2.
Just look at the map.
And again, the setbacks aren't affected by that, and it's still a non-conforming lot, regardless, so.
Yeah, it is RL2 despite
It
the
is
statement that it's
RL2.
RL1. It is RL2. Yeah.
It's 5 acres. I know it, I live there.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board at this point? Okay. Any members of the public wish to be heard on this application? All right. Then we will adjourn the hearing until 28th of January. Looks like. Our next meeting is. And we'd like to get the material in that we've requested from you. Now, when is the planning board meeting in January? The 12th. So, can we get it? It's going to be kind of sometime by the end of the, if we say the 8th, not a lot of time, but that gives you a handful of days to look at it. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of material here that, you know, you can get started on, but there would only be probably 2 or 3 days for you to look at the new material that comes in. I don't know if that's going to
Well,
be enough.
having heard what's going on, and knowing what to expect, and Sherry has been copying me some of the,
Okay.
knowing that it was
Does
coming.
that make sense by the 8th? I mean, can you get the stuff in by the 8th?
I can. The question would be Archon, if we need to get an archaeologist on board.
You'll have to
We'll have to coordinate with that.
figure that out, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not clear on what they do. Do they report or?
Just report their findings, they evaluate it, but you know, your consultants have advised you, it's probably better to take a look at what's out there in the field first before you actually go to parking, because you may not need to go there.
Yeah, I'll call Peter in the morning, I'll run that around with him first, and if there's, you know, any concerns, then we can somewhere, but I think we're better off just getting Peter involved first. I'll do that tomorrow.
All right, so the public hearing is adjourned to the 28th. The applicant to make submissions on the requested materials by the 8th January. And I'll leave it up to you folks as to whether or not you want to go to the planning board meeting when they discuss your application. That's up to you.
The 8th for both parties, I hope.
The meeting's on the 12th, the planning board.
Right, but the documents back to you, that hopefully applies to the neighbor too.
We can't do that because you've got to get the information into us, and then the public has to have an opportunity to take a look at it. So, you know, our board has typically accepted information right up to the public hearing, you know, and then we consider it, you know, at that time. So, you know, we're very used to people submitting stuff at the last minute to try to delay things. So, you know, we know how to deal with that. We try to address the issues that are raised at the hearing and go in that fashion.
Right, if something new pops up, he can't be prepared for it by the 8th, so I'm trying to, you know, think of what else could possibly pop up that hasn't been.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of gone over this thing with a pretty fine tooth comb at this point, so, you know, you never know.
Right.
But, okay? We should?
One might not be right.
Anything else on the board? No. Okay, well, thanks very much, folks. Appreciate you coming in.
Move to adjourn?
Sarah's got some issues he wants to talk about, or? Yes, we need to talk about training.
Yes, everything else was there, yeah, so training hours. I don't have any from you.
Online, to do them online.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And then I
I'm not
just need a
planning.
half
And that's
an
me
hour.
at the end of the year.
Half an hour training from you.
It was not.
Half an hour training. Half hour.
It's not hard to find. Department of
We'll
State.
have to do it online. So you'll have to come to my office tomorrow. Can you come tomorrow? Call me.
Because I think that's.
11 o'clock, does that work?
Getting,
For 10
taking
o'clock?
over engineering drawings.
All right, why don't we say 10 o'clock?